All right, so we're doing question number 4. Social Critic. The operas composed by Bizet and Verdi are 19th century European creations, reflecting the attitudes and values in France and Italy at the end of that century. So, what is this first sentence saying? Let's break that down. So, these operas, Bizet, the operas that are composed by these two artists, Bizet and Verdi, they are 19th century European creations, and they reflect the attitudes and values in France and Italy at the end of that century. Several recent studies impugn these operas on the grounds that they reinforce in our society many stereotypes about women. So these recent studies, they're saying that the operas, they impugn them, which means that they criticize them on the basis of the fact that they reinforce many stereotypes about women in our society. So that's like an opinion of others. That's an opinion of these several studies, or just a fact about those studies, but which is, that introduces, that's kind of introducing something important, or introducing at least a premise. But only a small minority of contemporary North Americans, namely opera lovers, have had any significant exposure to these works. So the question is asking which of the following most accurately expresses the conclusion. So this is a main conclusion question. We need to try to find the main conclusion of this stimulus. If you want to pause it right now and try to find it yourself, you can do that right now. But the main conclusion would be after this but that I circled. Only a small minority of contemporary North Americans, namely opera lovers, have had any significant exposure to these works. So essentially what it's saying is that only a small minority of these people have any significant exposure to these works. And by these works, it's referring to the operas that are being criticized in the sentence before. So we need to try to find an answer choice that most reflects what I've underlined. So let's go through the answer choices. A. Bizet and Verdi constructed images of women that have significantly influenced contemporary stereotypes. Is that what our stimulus is even saying? I mean, it is possible that that's what it's saying. These operas, they've reflected the attitudes in values in France and Italy, and then these studies impugn these operas on the grounds. Okay, so yes, maybe they constructed images of women, but is that what we underline? Is that what it's saying? I would say no. B. 19th century French and Italian images of women are quite different from contemporary North American images of women. Our stimulus isn't even necessarily saying that. It's just saying that a small minority of contemporary North Americans have had exposure to these specific works, these works of Bizet and Verdi that have reinforced in our society many stereotypes about women. So I would say that's not even what it's saying. The operas of Bizet and Verdi have not significantly contributed to stereotypical images of women in contemporary North America. I kind of like that. I like that because it's saying that only a small minority of North Americans have been exposed to these works. So based on that, they may not have necessarily reinforced in our society many stereotypes about women, just because so few people have been exposed to these works. And it's pretty much what C is saying. And then D, opera is not an important factor shaping social attitudes in contemporary North America. I wouldn't. Is that what we underline? Is that what it's saying? It's not necessarily saying that it's not an important factor. It's just saying that only a small amount of contemporary North Americans have been exposed to the works that reinforce stereotypes. So I would say D is out. E, people cannot be influenced by things they are not directly exposed to. That's going a little bit further than what our stimulus is saying. It's just saying that these studies are saying that they reinforce in our society stereotypes. However, only a small minority of North Americans, namely and pretty much specifically opera lovers, have had any significant exposure to these works. So that's like kind of reaching. We're kind of continuing what potentially the stimulus could say, but we can't do that, especially in top-down questions like these. So I would take E out. And C is our answer because it most closely reflects to what we've underlined as the main conclusion. And this, again, this is the main conclusion because this first sentence would be background information. The second sentence would pretty much be an opinion of others because these studies have criticized the operas, saying that they reinforce in our society many stereotypes. And then obviously this last sentence is the main conclusion. And C is our correct answer because it most closely represents what we've underlined is saying. So the operas of Bizet and Verdi have not significantly contributed to stereotypical images of women in contemporary North America. And that's what it's saying, is that only a small minority of contemporary North Americans have had any significant exposure to these works.